Hey, Rockstars, welcome to another No Bullshit podcast for contractors. Today, we are going to rock the house. We got Jon in the house, and he's a contractor, blackjack contracting. He's gone from $500,000 in sales with no money to a $5 million, seven-figure contracting business, $500,000 in profits. So we're going to talk about how did he do it? What was the journey? We're going to give you specific strategies to help you, get on the same pathway. We'll see you on the flip side. Talk to you soon. Until right now, this very moment, contractors have always been on their own, not as tradespeople, but being alone and knowing how to take their business to the next level. They call us working class, they call us blue collar. They say that we don't have the smarts to become the business owner that we're meant to be. That is such bullshit. You have the ability. You're more than any of that. The question really is, where do you get the insights that you need specific to contracting to systemize your business so you can get your profits to pay for your freedom? I'm Andrew Houston. I'm going to show you how to make more profits, how to get more control, how to get more freedom in the simplest, quickest way possible without any of that bullshit. Welcome to the No Bullshit podcast for contractors. Listen up, level up, and if you learn something, like the video, subscribe to the channel, change your business, change your life. All right, everybody, welcome to another No Bullshit podcast for contractors. I got my man Jon with me, and we are going to go deep with his journey on how to build a seven-figure contracting business. We got a lot to cover off, hey, Jon?
Yes, sir.
So tell us a little bit about, before we get into this, you went from, you're part of the Profit for Contractors family. Tell us a little bit about where you were at and sort of where you're at today, and then we can talk about the journey in between. So, when you first, came into the picture, what did things look like back then?
Sure. I mean, my original start was actually a small electrical contractor, just like yourself. And in 2017, me and a best friend decided to start a contracting company on a bet. Because we were working for some guy, and he was a good guy, but he ran a lousy business, and we bet him we could do it better, and it kind of took off from there. So we ran it small for the first year and a half. It was basically us just doing it, and then we saw the potential and decided to turn it into a real business. 2019, I was sitting in my basement on the couch, and I was playing on Facebook and saw an ad for Profit for Contractors. And of course, we weren't making any money back then. And we hopped on the free webinar and joined up that day. Fortunately for me, it was 2 weeks right before that live auto event.
That's right, man. That's right.
And I got my ass kicked right away.
Yeah, exactly. I brought the shit kickers with me.
That's right. It was so, the amount of stuff that you learned that you didn't know in 2 weeks was quite life-changing. And so at the time, we were doing about $500,000 in business, definitely no profits. It was a 70, 80 hour a week, all the time work week. Now, don't get me wrong, we were probably enjoying ourselves, but the wife probably gotten a little fed up with it.
Yeah, you think?
Actually,
it's funny when I hear owners tell me, yeah, it was 70, 80, it's probably more like a 90, 100. And then they go, the wife, and I go, the wife, did she even know who you were at that stage in the game? You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah. You know what? I'm pretty fortunate. My wife's a patient person, but to put up with that, she knew what we were up to. But it's a lot nicer working 40-hour weeks and be able to take vacations and take Fridays off whenever the hell you want, and actually seeing what a weekend is. So,
well, and Jon, at the same token, so you've got your freedom back. Okay, and again, we're going to talk about the journey here in just a second. But just like Cole's notes version of where are you at revenue wise, and where are you at as far as profitability and the hours. So you mentioned 40 hours. Where are you at? You went from 500 grand. Not making money, working hard.
Last year we went to just under 5 million. Our net profit was just over $500,000, which is, not the best, but I mean, it's money, right? And that's
okay, Jon. Yeah, not the best. $500,000.
That's right. Yeah, you got to be a little greedy, but
exactly.
and then we 40, and, sometimes I choose to work as we choose to. I do some other things, but so, I could do a 40-hour week and get everything I need to get done. Spend the weekends off in the summer up at the trailer. I was able to buy my dream boat last year. So that was something that I didn't think was going to come for 10 years. And I managed to buy it in cash last year. So that was pretty exciting. Got to spend some time fishing, and yeah, it's a different world, that's for sure. And yeah, it's pretty awesome.
So we'll talk about, everybody listening to this podcast. Again, it's the No Bullshit podcast. We're not here to talk about fluff or bullshit. We're here to really focus in on, strategies, the journey for, that Jon took, that I think a lot of you guys can relate to, at least at some phase. Maybe you're at the phase that he was at when he first started. Maybe you're partway through, maybe you're where he's at, or maybe beyond. But you should stay on this podcast if you're a contractor and you want to improve your business. If you're neither of those things, then again, no bullshit. Probably best that you jump off the podcast, right? Like, your time's valuable. But if you're interested in finding out how Jon did it, like how the hell did he go from 500 and not make no money to doing 5 million, like literally 10x, and more than 10xing his profits and actually getting his profits to pay for his freedom, then stick with us. Okay. So let's get into the beginning of this journey, in the sense of how hard were times back then, Jon. Like, tell us a little bit about what did that look like from a cash flow, from a people perspective.
Didn't exist. To be honest with you, right? It was garbage. People were interesting back then because, we didn't know any better. So you brought on people that you just knew, right? Which, sometimes can work out and sometimes could not work out. But, when it comes to money, you didn't know any better. You living in fear is an awful thing. And I think that's what, if anything that can come out of any of this, is that, as you talk about freedom all the time, is living in fear of money is probably, it's like being in prison, right? And once you can just get momentum in that way, and the power that you can, once you start actually making profits and how you can compound them, is just, it's life-changing. And the stress levels alone, be honest with you, if we ran things the way we did back then, I'd be dead in 5 years, right? Because that you'd have a heart attack. So that's probably the most powerful thing. And just knowing that you can.
Let me hone in on a couple of places, okay? So, and for everybody listening, and when I'm asking these questions, they are very intentional, okay? And you can almost take most of the questions that I'm going to be asking, probably the next 3 or 4 questions, and you already know what the answer should be. And this is the thing, when I ask these questions, you're going to go, yeah, I know what I want the answer to be, but the reality is a completely different thing. So let's just see how this goes. Does that sound like a plan, Jon?
Sure.
All right. So, on the hiring side, right? I mean, on the cash flow side, I mean, how much were you lacking on systems, dude?
We had 0.
Bingo. Everybody get the question, right? So the answer should be what, Jon?
Say that again, sorry.
So the answer back then was we had 0 systems.
Yeah.
Right. The answer today is basically we've got what?
A system for everything.
You got it. Everybody listening in, you're like, come on, Jon, a system for everything? Literally, guys, you need to have a system for everything, right from the first fucking phone call, right from a system for your marketing. What other systems what other areas did you not have? I know you had 0 systems, but what were some of the areas that come to mind, Jon, back then, that now you go, I just can't believe that we didn't have systems for?
Well, we didn't have a sales and marketing system. Marketing was huge. We didn't have just a communication system. We didn't have a financial system, to be honest with you. And that's probably the worst one. The greatest thing about joining PFC is that they went to work on your books right away. And my books were so bad. It took 3 accountants and 4 bookkeepers 6 months to fix my books. But holy crap, did I learn a lesson on that. But now Now, the system for bookkeeping is obviously number one now. I mean, financials are number one now, right? And that's once you learn that that's number one and take care of that one, oh, it's a lot easier.
And you know what? Let's talk about on that point. And then I want to ask some of these other questions, which are related to the whole the obvious of what we want the answer to the big questions. But when you look at your financials, okay, I think one of the greatest fears, correct me if I'm wrong, but I mean, I know when I had my electrical contracting business, and it doesn't matter what type of contractor you are, doesn't matter the size of your business. Am I right, John? It doesn't matter where you're located, you need to know your numbers. Like,
so
like
it's
how critical is knowing your numbers?
Well, it depends whether you want to make money or not.
God. It depends. Yeah. So if you're in a tough situation right now, and you're like, if you're listening on this podcast and you're like, I got cash flow issues. If you're listening in on this, and by the way, I know that one of the systems John didn't have. How do I know this? Because when John first came in, we had a little conversation, quite interesting. John didn't have a system for quoting. What does that mean? It means that John didn't have the ability to know that every fucking time he was quoting profitably. Am I right there, John?
Yeah, the first lesson I ever learned from you is the quoting one, and that changed my life. I wouldn't say the sad thing, but the greatest lesson I ever learned in PFC was the very first lesson you ever taught me, and it's changed. And I have no idea. I can't think back. I have no idea how I did it today without it. And I know for a fact that I was pricing at a loss every single time before we figured that out.
Yeah, I call it pricing for poverty.
Yeah, like, and you didn't know you were doing it.
Right. Everybody listening, that's a critical thing. I want to just make sure y'all get out of what he just said. He didn't know
you were doing.
Say it again.
So you didn't know you were doing it.
Guys, when you don't know you're doing it, you can't fucking change it. You can't fix it. You can't adjust it. You can't measure it. You just can't. So your inevitable outcome is you have better odds going to freaking, and back to name of your company?
Blackjack Contracting.
Yeah, Blackjack Contracting. Guys, you got better odds playing freaking blackjack and less risk and less stress going to the freaking poker table than you do, not knowing your numbers and all aspects of your numbers around your business. Okay. And working hard, like John, back to when you first came into the picture, working hard didn't solve the problem, did it?
No, it probably made it worse. Because if you're working on the wrong things, then you can only compound your problems.
Totally, man. Totally. So, and what did it look like? Amplify a little bit for everybody so that they can relate, and I'll amplify on my end as well on the personal front. What did that look like? You got kids?
Yes, sir. 2 of them. Third on the way.
So what does that look like as far as the impact of putting in all these hours, being stressed out, living in fear? What kind of impact did that have for you on the family front, even on your own personal mindset?
Sure. I mean, on the mindset, it's a battle, but you know what? You almost get blinded to it. I'll never forget what I finally got away for a vacation, and we were driving down to Florida, and my kids wouldn't leave my side. They wouldn't let me go. They wouldn't, all of a sudden, my wife said to me, it's because they've missed you. That one kind of kicked yourself in the pants and hurt, right? Because they saw you for maybe half an hour a day, Sundays, maybe a few hours. Right. That one is where you get a kick to the chest and you realize you got to do something different. So,
hey, John.
Yeah, the kids one hurts.
Can't relate to that picture, can you?
Yeah, I can.
Yep. The kids literally physically, am I getting this right? The kids actually physically not wanting to let go of it. Yeah,
they wouldn't leave my side. And I didn't know why until my wife pointed it out. And then that one was a wake up call.
Yeah. Yeah. So if this is resonating with you guys at all, I want to let you know, stick with us here for the next 15 minutes or so, because we're going to start getting into like, what did Jon do differently? Okay. So what was the breakthrough moment that changed? Was there a breakthrough moment that changed, what happened after? Like what made you commit to making the changes? Like, was there a moment, and I don't know if there was, but was there a time where it was like, oh my God, I have to commit to getting this thing changed?
You know what? It was a bunch of things, but I remember sitting at the hockey game with you guys in Ottawa there right after the conference, and I was telling Liam about my business, and I told him that I had two businesses that I ran under one umbrella, and he shook his head at me. He's like, "That's the first thing we're going to change." And I didn't realize why until he explained it to me. And then, I got into the coaching when how messy your books were, and it's just like, you can't live like this. You're going to be bankrupt. And the toughest one I had to deal with in PFC was a rock for getting me through it. Was I had a business partner that we're best friends in the whole wide world, but we had no alignment when business whatsoever. So it took me about a year being in PFC, and I bought him out, and that really transformed, because I was that probably brought most stress on me on anything, because that was a friendship I wasn't willing to lose, but it just was not going to work for me to have my future business goals and the freedoms, because he awesome guy, don't get me wrong, but just we had no alignment when it comes to a growth of a company and all that stuff. So those are the few ones that I had to fight through the most.
That's huge.
Yeah, that was a real tough one. And so, within a year of being POC, I picked a new business partner that was Andy. We were on the podcast at the beginning, Andy, and we restarted the electrical company on a separate company. I bought out Blackjack and started building it in my own vision. And with my other ex-business partner, is like, I was trying to grow and implement systems that he kind of wasn't in the same alignment, so it was real tough to get on that thing. So as soon as I got the company to myself, we were able to implement systems and start really focusing on bringing good people into the company. And I've made my mistakes with people, don't get me wrong, and we've learned our lessons, but we've got a few bodies in that have just transformed customer satisfaction and profits for the company. So that was a huge one.
It's interesting. I don't always know in these podcasts where things are going to go. I didn't know that you were going to talk about your kids physically not wanting to let you go. And meanwhile, there's a fucking picture behind me saying more freedom. And, there's a little daughter holding on to dad's leg, not letting go. And I didn't know that when you're talking, it might be hard to see this, but this is like the evolution. If you guys think about, you've seen you've got the evolution of man, whether you believe in it or not, where you have the ape, and then, the ape starts walking upright and so on and so forth. It's an evolution. Okay. And why am I bringing this up? So an evolution from being in the trenches. You were in the trenches, dude. I was in the trenches. We're all in the trenches, to being on the tools, to, then, managing the job sites, then freaking go out and managing multiple job sites from a project management perspective, to being the estimator. And meanwhile, you're wearing all these hats, and the hat of the business owner, which is the person at the front here, that's what that's representing. We don't even know how to be that business owner. So why am I'm bringing this up? Because if you're listening in on this, one of the biggest shifts that has to happen is your mindset. And until you shift your mindset into wanting to be a business owner, wanting to be a champion CEO, your identity is always going to be something other than what it needs to be. Jon, does that resonate with you?
It couldn't resonate more. Mindset is everything, and it's the only reason we became a 7-figure company, is because I decided, and to be completely honest, though, it is a mind battle. You constantly battle your mind. It takes a lot of motivation, reading, stuff like that on mindset to get it ready, because you can read every how to be a contractor book in the world, but if you don't focus up here, because this is your biggest battle, the rest is easy, to be honest with you.
It's interesting because, I know you mentioned that you had reached out for help to a lot of other companies, and I remember reading that one post that you put out, and you were really clear to state that, there was something different. I know you said there was something different about Profit Contractors, but that there was something different that we were able to bring to the table. And I think one of the things that you need to search out for, everybody listening in, is you need to have people that are going to hold you accountable to your dreams and your vision, almost greater than you, because you're going to go through tough times. You're going to go through mental challenges where you're really questioning, can I do this? Or should I be doing this? Or, I'm really, I'm out of my comfort zone. I've never learned financials before. I mean, can I learn this? Can I really, figure out how to put systems into the business? But, Jon, what would be the mindset that allowed you to keep on persevering, to learn these principles, to put the right things into play?
Well, it's just, if you don't, you're going to be in the same spot as the guy on the left for the rest of my life. And I wasn't willing to do that. I'm still pretty young, but I have so many ambitions. And unless you put the systems and understand the financials into your business, you're going to be that guy forever. And to be honest with you, at that point, go get a job. It's so much easier. You'll probably make more money. For me to be able to live my dreams, have my financial goals and my time goals, and be honest with you, time's way worth more way to me than money. The money doesn't motivate me as much as the freedom of time does. And unless you get those things in place, you're going to be stuck doing that forever. And, I mean, I've had family members who are the exact same way, that have been working, doing the exact same thing, even as entrepreneurs, for the exact same way their whole lives. They're going to retire with very little savings. And it's like, that's not going to be me.
Right. So what were some of the things that you did, or you learned throughout this journey that allowed you to put the appropriate time aside to work on the business?
Time blocking is huge. I mean, we all have the same freaking problem, right? We all say we don't have enough time, and I still feel time pressure today. Don't get me wrong.
Sure. So,
but by blocking, like I just did my calendar for next month before this podcast of blocking how I'm going to block the time out to get what I want to get done. And so I'm not a crazy left brain person. I'm pretty right brain. I'm pretty staggered, but when I feel in control, I get 10 times more done. When I don't have any structure, which is my natural state, I don't get anything done. And so time blocking was I'd say the biggest lesson, and obviously making sure there's enough time blocked to work on the business. And in the early days, let's call a spade a spade. It's going to be nights and weekends when you're doing the working on your business. But as you get better, then you start putting it into your full-time schedule where you can still have that freedom and get shit done. So it's that was probably the biggest one.
Everybody listening in, he just gave you a piece of gold. Now, when we're working with people that want to become champion CEOs, there's a lot involved in getting control of your time, and it's a bunch of bullshit. If anybody ever tells you, this is just my personal opinion, if anybody ever tells you that this feeling of the struggle of time is going to go away, that's bullshit. And I'm going to tell you why it's bullshit. It's bullshit because in the beginning, you're in a form of chaos. And Jon, let's see if this relates, if this resonates with you. You're in a form of chaos. You're, busy is your motto, right? The busier that I am, if I, the more time that I put in, this should equate to me being successful. Well, once you learn that that's not really the case, it's what you're doing with your time, the things that you're doing with your time, and how structured that is, that's going to have the biggest impact. In other words, if all you're doing is putting in more time being in the ditch, you're just going to be in the ditch more. If you're putting more time in on specifically, strategically thinking about, about becoming a champion CEO, and you're doing more activities as a champion CEO, you will become a champion CEO. But why does this time thing why, Andrew, but you're champion CEO, why would your time thing challenge still exist? It becomes a different challenge. And the different challenge is that you become inspired. Your visions become greater. And when your visions become greater, you start to realize that I've only got so much time. As far as I know, as far as, you know, John, like, you know, you've highlighted this. I know in some of the chats we've had, like, you and I agree that, you know, to our knowledge, this is the life that we got, right?
Yep.
And so when you become more inspired, I mean, you're now realizing that you're racing with the clock, because you want to get so much more accomplished, because you're now that much more, you know, you've got more freedom, you've got more control, you've got more money. But now this struggle of time, it's a different struggle, but it's always still a struggle, because you realize, right, John, that you've only got so much time to accomplish these things that you want, correct?
Yeah, I fight time. Time is the biggest, it messes with my mind more than anything. I'm 34 years old and I feel like I got very little time left to get what I want done. So I don't know if that's a blessing or a curse, but I totally agree.
I think it's a blessing, dude. I mean, and this is the difference. You know, when you're over in this space over here and you're in the ditch, or you're on the tools, or you're running the job sites, I'm going to tell you right now, you're in a trap. Okay. When you're over here and you're John, and John has got, there's more than one John as far as a champion CEO, because he's a champion CEO of his life. He's a champion CEO of multiple businesses. But he's now, you know, now you're driven, right, in a positive way to get things done. Like, you took the time to map out your month's worth of what you're going to be doing. I mean, dude, how powerful is that?
Good. Makes me feel almost like at ease about what I'm about to go into. So it's a pretty powerful tool.
So what would you say to somebody that says to you, you know, I'm listening to this podcast right now, but, you know, John, I don't have time to map out what I'm going to be doing for the next month. What would you say to them?
Then you're going to be doing the exact same thing the month after.
Like, that's pretty common, right? Pretty logical, right? So,
Yeah,
you know,
it's not hard.
What you know, what, as far as you know, what are some of the new dreams that have come through this journey? What have, you know,
So
go ahead.
So I read I know an acquaintance of both of ours, Bob's book over the holidays, and it really opened my eyes to a couple things, and one of my biggest roadblocks right now is actually production, about how much I can produce to grow my company. And I realized is that well, I'm just going to eliminate that roadblock. So I'm putting a whole new plan together, and I plan on 10xing my company over the next 5 years, and plan on taking it national. So right now I'm actually sitting here in quarantine because we had a close contact. So I've been given a gift of 2 weeks of uninterrupted time to work on my plans. So right now I'm just planning out for the next 1, 3, and 10 years, and yeah, so I'm pretty excited about the possibilities.
And, you know, it's interesting, like, I can see it in your face that you're super excited, right? That you know, you're excited, instead of looking at these obstacles and then just stopping, you're actually looking at an obstacle now going, wait a second, I'm going to eliminate that barrier, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, when it comes to building your team, so, you know, you've had to build a team quite significantly to go from 500,000 to, you know, to 5 million. And, you know, one of the things that, you know, we talk about here at Profit for Contractors is the ability, and I'm gonna skip out. I'm gonna run out and come right back in a second, because I should have had my little book here in front of me. But one of the things that contractors always struggle with is on the hiring front. So can you speak to, you know, what were some of the things, the mental changes, you know, the systemization that you've done that's allowed you to build this greater team, you know, this profitable team? Can you speak to that?
Sure.
Grab the book. Keep going.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, the first thing you got to do is get over the mindset of trust, right? So being able to delegate to your team members and have a plan and action. And I struggle with that because, you know, you did everything yourself for so long that you got to learn how to offload those responsibilities. And plus, when you offload those responsibilities, it's going to give you more time to work on the business. learning about people's personalities is something I need to get better, and I'm working on. I'm reading and listening about the art of leadership and the art of delegation. I'm nowhere near perfect with that. It's something I need to constantly improve on. Disc profile training, all that
Yeah.
stuff is something that I'm actively in right now. But when I bought out the company and I started bringing people in, I watched my revenue and profits take off. So that tells me something, that obviously, if you want to try to do this yourself, it ain't going to work. So now, obviously, we've got some rock stars. We've had some people that didn't work out, and you realize then if you take some really deep analysis of why those people didn't work out and why these people did, I've learned a lesson. Especially, I've had great success in hiring very successful women this year, which really was a mind shift change about the construction industry. Not trying to be sexist, it's just typically I was worried about women in the construction industry being bailed out of the industry, and I'm finding out that these certain ladies, they're so organized and they're so detailed that this has been a mind shift for me, and now I know where I want to attract and all that stuff. So it's been really interesting couple of years.
So this book, you got to get your hands on this sucker. I know she just came out, but if you don't have it already. But one of the things that we talk about here is the mindset shift that a lot of, and I'd like you to speak to this, back to the No Bullshit podcast, where and I call bullshit, is that they think that there's nobody out there. Oh, there's yeah. So go ahead.
There's lots out there.
There's lots.
There's lots of people out there. It's what you're willing to do, right? Building a brand is not just for your customers, right? Building a brand is really to attract people in general. Even with my new thing I was just mentioning, I won't go into a whole lot of details. It's about attracting people to come work with us. So that's a big mind shift thing, and you wouldn't think about in the beginning. The coaching groups I've been part of has really hammered that home. It takes a little while to get through the thick skull, but yeah, building your company is not just attracting customers, it's attracting good people in general.
Totally. So everybody listening in, I want you to understand, and then we're going to start wrapping things up here, is that I want you to understand that at the end of the day, okay, you have a whole ton of contractors out there that are in your space, right? And they could be in a different province, they could be a different city, but let's just say in your area. And there's a whole bunch of tradies, tradespeople that are working for these contractors. The reality is that most of those contractors, unless they've done and gotten some training, some insights, some coaching, right, some consulting on learning these principles of how to run a profitable contracting business, right, without you, then they basically have a chaotic environment. Their brand, how they're seen internally from their employees is like this owner doesn't have their shit together. Now, the only reason that they're still working at that place, especially the A players, is because they don't know that there's something out there that's better. So Jon, how has your marketing now changed to now attract these A players from the competition? And we're not talking about, doing it unethically, hence the book, right? How to steal your competitors' tradespeople ethically. Last couple of questions, how do you get that, how's your message changed from having a business that's in control versus the way it was in the past? And what impact has that had on attracting A players?
We saw a great, I really never thought about it until 6 months ago. I got in a bunch of great resumes, and they specifically requested us, and I had no idea why, to be honest with you, until I realized it all came from a marketing campaign of making yourself the premier contractor. And I wasn't particularly paying attention until I realized that these people were searching out us through recruiters and stuff like that and asking out. And you realize that if you build a brand and you build a mentality about being the best and wanting to be the best, everything is top notch. And you're not just looking for people, you're looking for great people. You're looking for top, even in our ads, we put A players, right? We don't put rock stars, A players. We don't look for the general thing. And all of a sudden people start coming to you and you realize that's pretty powerful and it's pretty exciting. And so, when you're searching out people just by throwing generic ads out there, you're going to get generic people, right? You're really, really after the good ones. And then, here's the thing is if you're making money, you can pay them more money and the other contractors should be pretty easy. Right. So
Right.
I've had a philosophy for a long time is that I pay top dollar. And if you come in here and you're worth it, you're worth it. You're going to be here for a long time. If you're not, you're not. I don't play the game of trying to nickel and dime and bonuses, blah blah blah. I pay them top dollar. If I told you the salaries in my company, you'd probably have a heart attack. But the
No. You know what? Here's the thing, John. They might, the listeners, but I'm like high fiving you when you're making $500,000 in net profit and you've 10x your company. Got everybody listening in. Understand that John's way of thinking is probably very opposite of some of the mental, some of the ways that you're mentally looking at, finding, attracting, hiring, and keeping A players. I mean, you probably don't, most of you listening in just went, what did Andrew just say? Guys, there's 4 phases. You've got to master the finding. You got to master the attracting. You got to master the landing. You got to master the keeping. Those are different phases of hiring. And what's that equate to, John? A system, right?
Yeah, systems. That's right. And it's been a whole lot different. And the nice thing about that too is you can be a lot pickier in who you choose for your company. And that's something that I've developed here is that you're there for rock stars and rock stars only. And I know you had a great podcast with me the other day, but Tom Reaver says it's like what you're willing to accept, right?
Right.
If you're willing to accept mediocrity, you're going to get mediocre in your life. If you only accept awesomeness and A players, you're going to get A players in your life. So
Absolutely.
that's
absolutely. And with that being said, you've got to have an A player environment, everybody. Here's sort of my last little comment on that. I want you to, think about these questions honestly. Look yourself in the mirror, just like John did, right? When he was working the 80, 90 hours a week and he didn't have cash flow and his business was in chaos. If you're an employee, would you want to work for an owner that's in that state? No, you don't. Okay, you don't. Next question. If you're an owner listening in on this podcast, ask yourself this question. If you were to fire everybody today in your company, picture just you fired everybody. How many of those people would you actually hire back? And if it's a lot less than what you currently have, right? If the number is less, then you have to take ownership as the owner of the company. That it's your fault in essence that things didn't work out because it's one of these 4, if not a combination of them, that you are not, doing an effective job on. And I think as soon as you come to realize, John, your comment, your insight on this, like how important is it that people listening in, inclusive of yourself, have to take ownership of the problems in the company?
It's either all on you. It's either you're going to take 100% ownership or do not be a business owner. It's I know Liam was talking to Brian a couple of weeks ago, your last podcast, and 7 secrets to a wealthy contractor. And the first thing is you have to be willing to take 100% ownership for everything in your business. And learning to, so I had a bunch of problems. Don't get me wrong. Like none of us are perfect, right? We all have issues. And I had a good revelation last year is because not once did I blame the problems on somebody else. I blamed it on me. And once you can do that, you can start doing things because it's your job, it's your company, it's your responsibility to get this shit straight. And if you play the blame game, even if you're having conversations with other contractors, which I love to do, especially young PFC guys, they call for peer assistance. And if you hear them start playing the blame game, they're not ready. Yeah, totally. Back to your thing.
Sometimes they can get ready when they get enough of a kick in the arse, right? Like sometimes.
That's all they need.
Honestly, like look at you needed it when you first started. Okay, everybody listening
Absolutely.
in, we all need somebody to give us a bit of a shake of reality and go, like, hey, A, you can do something about this, and B, you're the one that needs to own it. Right? When you can do those 2 things mentally, the things start to appear. things start to change. Things start to freaking, go in the direction that you want it to. So Jon, if there's one or two last things that you would recommend for people listening in on this podcast, what, regarding, your success, what would it be?
So I became a big student of the industry over the last few years, and I really love the industry, though it's one of the least respected industries in the world, and I think we let that happen to ourselves by, for the guys that don't build businesses and try to work on their businesses. But I talk to, tens of hundreds of young contractors or new to business contractors that won't invest in themselves. They won't join a coaching program. They won't read a book. They won't get a peer mentor because they think it's too expensive or it's not worth their time. And I'll tell you from experience that I would be bankrupt and working at a job right now if I hadn't done what I had done when I joined POC. And I've done a bunch of other things. I'm not going to be honest with you. I just became a student of the industry. And nothing bothers me more to people who won't invest themselves. And and they're like, oh, it's so expensive, but is it?
Is it? Yeah. You're like, you invested this much and you got this return on investment and you got your life back. And think about just that in itself, right? Like, why do we get in the business? And I think we get in the business to get more freedom, more control, more money, to get beyond, to evolve in this journey. But anything else, Jon, that you say? That's great. That's great insight, dude. By the way, that's awesome.
No, I appreciate it. No, honestly, just if you're not, you got to work hard. There's no ands about it. Okay. There's no magic pill. It is getting to work. If for the guys in your program, it's like, okay, sitting there reading it and listening to it's great, but unless you implement something, implementing is everything, right? I know you're going to go there. I read your last thing, but if you I know implementing, if you don't do it, it's not going to be in there. And you know what? So it's just like, stop with the excuses, get to work, and you're going to be very successful. You're in the right industry. There's no reason why this industry has so many opportunities.
Oh my God.
There's unlimited opportunities. So just implement and get to work.
So I guess my last comment is just segueing after what you just said. If you're a contractor and you're listening in, Jon completely nailed it. You are at the right place. If you want to be in an industry that is going to have way more and currently has way more demand than supply, you're in the right place. If you want to be in an industry that is in the next 10 years, there's going to be, the construction industry is going to have one of the greatest exit of business owners, right? In the history of mankind, humankind, right? And that's a great opportunity. It's either going to crush you in the poverty, or it's going to, if you put the right things in place like Jon, you can be a Jon, everybody listening in. You can get your life back. You can make a ton of money. You can be able to, live the dreams that you want, and even way beyond what your current dreams are. But you've got to first of all take the first step, whether that's engaging with Profit Contractor, whether that's getting a book in your hands like Jon is saying. But if you're just sitting there not doing anything about it, you're just going to be digging yourself a hole. So Jon, thank you so much, dude. I love that you've been part of this Champion CO community. You've given so much back. Thanks for your time today. And
anytime, buddy. Anytime.
I love it. I love that you've made so much progress and come so far. So that's the No Bullshit podcast for contractors, and we'll see you guys on the flip side. Ciao. Hey, Rockstar. I hope you enjoyed that one. And if you did like this one, join our private Facebook group, Profitable Contractors Association. It's one of the biggest communities for contractors with over 10,000 members, where you get the latest insights to help you delegate, dominate, and deliver so you can take your contracting business to a whole nother level.